won't be the last.
Won't be the last. Well, the guy behind was a little surprised.
I would expect he wouldn't be. Well, I said, I don't know.
And he thought he'd hit the person, so I'm sure it was traumatic.
2 minutes to go. Alrighty, so Zoom's up. Nobody else is zoomed yet.
I talked to Mike Smith,
Good, okay.
and he thought he could make it, although he's up in New York.
When's it back to New York? A funeral.
No. A dinner for the referees.
Okay. I'm gonna put up, we're gonna get you going. Then I'm gonna dash up to the room and get Facebook going.
Okay.
It's, 20 seconds. We're up now. This is way too loud. If we even have music going. I don't know what we do. Okay, put the mics on.
Putting you on, Cliff. Here you go.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Dawn Patrol. It's Monday the 21st. I'm Cliff Krieger, your host. John McDonough is our producer. He's about to become Facebook John. And we're looking for Fru, Eileen, and Mike Smith to be coming on the show, and then Dr. Liam Skinner at 7 o'clock. And weather report, whoops. So Fru just texted me that he's having internet problems.
All right, he can call in the show or take the day off.
So, yes. The weather outside, and I came in, it's a little crisp, but it's going to be a good day. And it's going to be in the 70s through Wednesday, and then it'll drop into the 60s. And there wasn't a lot of humidity messing up the windows, so that was good today. In history, in 1774, the flag of Taunton, Massachusetts, became the first to include the word freedom. Those people down in Taunton were trouble early on. In 1797, down in Boston Harbor, the 44-gun frigate USS Constitution was launched. In 1805, during the Napoleonic Wars, Lord Nelson engaged a French and Spanish fleet under Admiral Villanueva in the Battle of Trafalgar. If you go to London, there's a Trafalgar Square that commemorates this, and they used to make it a holiday. So it's a big deal to our British cousins. In 1824, Portland cement was patented. In 1854, Florence Nightingale and a staff of 38 nurses went to the Crimean War. In 1879, Thomas Edison applied for a patent for his incandescent light bulb. I didn't realize it was that long ago, but a great invention. Although sometimes they're trouble. Yesterday I got a call from my wife to get a pair of pinch nose pliers and come over to the church. The bulb had fallen out of the socket, and we had to take the socket out with the pliers and then put in a new light bulb in the lamp over the organ so that Ralph at the 12 o'clock Mass would have some lighting. 1921, President Warren G. Harding delivered the first speech by a sitting U.S. president against lynching in the Deep South. Lynching was a horrible thing and a blot on our history. In 1940, the first edition of Ernest Hemingway's novel For Whom the Bell Tolls is published. This is a novel about the war in Spain between Franco and the nationalists, which Franco eventually won. In 1966, a colliery spoil tip slipped into houses in a school in Aberfan in Wales, killed 144 people, 116 of whom were school children. In 1983, the meter was finally defined as the distance light travels in a vacuum in rounding out 1/300 millionth of a second. So, there you are. Not based on anything. The foot, though, king's foot size, something we can identify with. And births, 1944, Mandy Rice Davies, English model and actress, passed away in 2014. John, you know about Mandy Rice Davies, right?
Was she in the Wizard of Oz?
No. She helped bring down a British government.
Okay. Don't know her, but thank you.
Involved in the Profumo affair.
She also fooled around?
Yes.
Okay.
1949, Benjamin Netanyahu was born.
They tried to take him out over the weekend.
Yeah. 1956, Carrie Fisher was born, passed away in 2016. In 1969, Jack Carraway passed away. He'd been born in 1922, native son of Lowell. 1998, Francis Sargent, who had been a governor of Massachusetts, passed away. And in 2012, George McGovern, who had run for president, passed away. As I recall, he ran against Richard Nixon. Ah, someone's here. Hello. And how are you? Eileen?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
I'm good. How are you? Okay, good. I'm gonna leave the picture off because I think that affects it. But I'm here. I plan on coming in about 6:45.
Well, why don't you work on beautification, and Cliff will continue with the history, and you can be on your way sooner.
No. Bus is at 6:30.
I understand she can devote her attention to him.
All right.
That's true. Good point.
Holy smoke, I just picked up 2 claim clips. So, Fru's having trouble coming in, and we haven't heard from Mike Smith,
I
who's...
invited Fru to call,
Yes.
and Mike's coming in now for a second attempt.
Okay.
Should be appearing soon.
All
There
right.
he is.
Hello, Mike?
Morning, guys. I was logged in and then it never came through, so I tried it again. Now it went through finally, so.
Okay. So, how's your trip to New York?
Okay, busy. We had a big dinner last night for our soccer referees, so got to see a lot of people, say goodbye to them. because I won't be up again, so, not for a while.
No. Well, Florida's gain. So
Yeah, we'll see.
you made it through the two hurricanes, no sweat?
Well, I mean, we had some stuff. We had some minor damage to our home. The front left corner, the porch, there was some siding that popped out. I was able to snap it all back in. And then on the side eaves, a couple of the struts had come loose. I re-screwed those back in. I repaired everything in less than an hour. And then our power, for those of you that aren't electricians, when you have a power panel to your house, they bring 110 in volts on two sides of the panel. And that's how you get your 220 to run your dryer or AC unit or furnace or things like that. One leg was not working, so we only had one side of the panel working, which fortunately was the side that had our refrigerator plugged in on. So we didn't lose that, but we didn't have any AC or a hot water tank from like Friday to like Sunday sometime. But we came back on Friday. I fixed the stuff on the house, and then we drove back up to Orlando because I had to do a soccer tournament. They didn't cancel that. But they put us up in a condo up there, so we had everything we needed, washer, dryer, kitchen. So we just brought our stuff up with us.
Okay.
But other people in the neighborhood, when we got back on Sunday, still didn't have power across the street from us. They got that back, I think, Monday evening. I think it was either Monday evening or Tuesday. But those people lost like stuff out of their fridge. There were other people who had damage to their roofs, and a number of palm trees that I saw in our area had been broken down and pushed over, trees. And so there was damage, and we were just fortunate in our home we didn't have that much.
Would you like to comment on Governor DeSantis' overall management?
Well, if Trump wasn't running for president, he would be the presidential elector for the representative for the Republican Party. He did an excellent job. He had everything all organized ahead of time. We saw where the trucks were parked and they were out on the road. I mean, they did an excellent job restoring everything. I mean, he had people there to take debris away. They had shelters. He had press conferences every day or more than once a day. He knew all the facts. He went to the areas that were hard hit, so he knew firsthand. He had everything organized. I mean, as best as you could have organized for this kind of damage.
So how about, was Tampa badly damaged or just a lot of water?
Well, they didn't get it as bad. If you were along the water, anybody who was along the water got damage. I'll give you an example. Madeira Beach is probably about 15 minutes away from us. That's where the American Legion is. I have a membership there from Sons of American Legion. They had 3 foot of water go through their building, and they're closed. They probably won't reopen until late November or early December. I got an email on that. So there was a lot of damage along Gulf Boulevard, along there. A lot of damage from Sands, from Helene, and from Milton. So it's if you were along the water, there was damage. When I was at the dinner yesterday, one of the other guys I know had been down in Florida. He said Punta Cana, I think it was. He said that's like wiped right out. There's just total devastation there.
Yeah.
So depending on where you were and what kind of area the winds hit, there was some big damage to a lot of places. But Tampa didn't get hit quite as bad, but they did have. When we drove back on Sunday from Orlando, like when you drive along the highways, you see the big road signs. You see advertisements on the big road signs. Every single one of them was ripped off, whatever was on them. The structures were still there, fairly good, but any of the signs were all ripped off. So that just shows you the force of the winds and the damage there.
How
We
about-
saw a number of
Yeah.
trees were uprooted too.
St. Pete did okay?
They got some damage. They got some pretty good damage. But like I said, anything along the water from the storm surge and that, there was a lot of damage.
Yeah.
People had that. It was not a good time to have beachfront property.
Yep, I understand that. So, looking at important news, last week, the Israelis got Yahya Sinwar, the Hamas leader. He's dead. But then turn around over the weekend, and as I think Mike said, Hezbollah tried to drone Prime Minister Netanyahu's private home, and in Caesarea, I think. They knocked down two of the drones, but a third one hit somewhere with a big explosion. Nobody was injured. CB and his family are okay. So,
Yeah, I saw that article, and yeah, it's this is war. They're going to go after the top people, and Israel's been more successful. I was reading an article recently how they got Sinwar. They basically were able to get into the tunnels and force them out of hiding in there. By getting through the tunnel labyrinth. That's how they were able to find them and get them. But the Israelis are, they're not going to back off, and I don't think this U.S. or anything's going to stop them from doing that. They want to decapitate this organization, and unfortunately, Hamas and that, they don't care who dies. The leaders, as long as they're intact, they'll send people out. They don't care. I mean, that's just the way they look at it. So I don't see an end to this soon. I just don't see it.
I saw,
Well, wait, can I just interject one thing?
inject.
Most of the people who are fighting against Israel really believe they instantly go to heaven. And this is a war for God. And I think that that's what they really believe in their spirit. And I don't think any government ever addresses this issue. Luckily, most of us have our own God in our own way. And if your God tells you, I want you to die for me, I want you to come to paradise, I think you do it. Back to you, Cliff.
No, I just want to add on to that, to John's comment. Yes, that is true. They're taught that it's okay to be a martyr. It's okay to fight for this because you'll go to a better place. So if you're a young child, say 4 or 5, and you're going to school and they're teaching this to you all the time, you've basically been brainwashed to believe that. And that's a tough thing in a war when you're fighting for religion, for God. People, they don't want to give up on that. And that's why I think Israel's going after the leadership and trying to knock as many of them out as possible, because if they can do that, they can break that cycle. But the people here believe that their religion is the only religion, and if you're not part of it, then they don't want you around.
Well,
And that's the tough part.
I'm lucky enough to have some friends that we can discuss our religious beliefs amongst ourselves and still remain friends and conversational. And then I have some other friends that just think that you can't discuss, like some of my friends you can't discuss politics with. Can't discuss politics, can't discuss religion. I don't enjoy it so much as I used to, but I used to always drive the hearse. So I got to meet every different religion that's out there, whether it was a Hindu, a Buddhist, a mostly Christian, mostly Catholic, but rabbi, and heaven. We're driving to a cemetery, and we're half an hour in the car, having a wonderful conversation. And they really believe right to their core in their God. So I learned a lot from those guys. Back to you, Cliff.
So I saw something over the weekend where a Hamas spokesman said that 80% of the dead in Gaza are Hamas fighters or their immediate family. So it's not quite the same as thousands of random civilians. You got any thoughts on this, Eileen? Eileen has deserted us.
I think she's tending with Anthony, and that's okay.
Yeah, it is okay. So, Mike, did you see where someone was leaking highly classified information, intelligence on Israel's plans with regard to Iran?
I saw I saw an article was coming up. I just didn't have time to read it, being busy this weekend with the soccer stuff. But I am aware of that. Maybe you can fill me in a little bit more on it, just quickly.
Well, I don't know much more than you do, but apparently someone in the U.S. government leaked this information, highly classified information, about what Israel might do to Iran. I mean, this is disrespectful to an ally. It's embarrassing that someone would leak this kind of information.
Well, I consider that treason. They should be prosecuted and put in a black hole for the rest of their life. That's treason. Leaking that's an ally. That person should be found out and put away. Because that's not, if they'll do it for Israel, what would they do with us? And they work for our government.
Yep. It's a pretty bad thing. Did you have any thoughts on the Al Smith dinner on last Thursday?
No, I didn't get a chance to see anything on. I know what it is, but
Yeah.
was just Trump one? Was Harris didn't come to that, did she?
No, she sent a video clip.
Yeah.
As some,
She keeps stepping in it. I don't understand this, but anyways.
as someone said, she was in Michigan receiving communion from Gretchen Whitmer.
Okay. All right.
So
Well, the
just
Catholic
doesn't-
Church took it as a slap in the face. And you didn't hear that in the media over the weekend. Did you hear that anywhere?
the Gretchen Whitmer communion thing or the Al Smith dinner thing?
Never mind,
Or
Cliff.
both?
I think you know what I meant, but never mind. Please remove my question.
All right. We have a
Comment from
comment.
the audience? You can read that, Cliff.
Good morning. It's great to see Mr. Smith on the screen. He was in our prayers. Well, yes,
Thank you
he
very
was.
So, Cliff, you being the smartest man on the planet.
No, but go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, you are pretty smart. What is an elephant's favorite vegetable? Now, don't tell me you don't know that.
I assumed it was the cabbage, but go ahead.
You don't know what the elephant... I'm going to just do the Cliff routine. Here we go. You don't know what an elephant's favorite vegetable is, Cliff?
Apparently not.
You've never heard of that?
I assumed it was the cabbage.
Why would you assume it's the cabbage?
Oh,
Because
Don't
of
they
the
eat something
story.
Because it's what?
don't they eat something off trees or leaves or something like that? I thought that elephants ate that.
Don't help, Mike. Don't help. This is a Cliff thing. Mr.
Because of the story, the lady that called the police
Cliff,
and
you don't know.
apparently not. Go ahead.
This is the routine you drag me through every time you ask me a question. What size stainless steel screw holds the wing on an F-14? the favorite vegetable for an elephant is the squash.
Okay.
Okay.
That's
Oh,
it.
maybe they like it because squash could be fairly sweet at the right times.
Mike, think about it. Just pull the camera back. Look at the big picture. You're not getting it. You're breathing that New York air, man. You should get back down to Florida. Back to Cliff.
You sure you didn't mean squish? All right.
What vegetable squish, Cliff?
It's not.
All right.
Okay, so we have a U.S. Senate race up here in Massachusetts. There were 2 debates last week between Liz Warren and John Deaton.
2 debates with them?
Yes, one on Tuesday and one on Thursday.
I only saw the one. How did she do on the other one?
Yeah, about the same.
She was still running for president?
Yeah.
Wow. I thought Elizabeth Warren made some serious errors in that. I'll make time to watch that one.
Yeah. The Elizabeth Warren has been out of state as a surrogate for candidate Kamala Harris, which I think shows that she's pretty confident that she's going to beat John Deaton.
She's got the machine.
Yeah. So, and of course, my recommendation is that you vote for John McDonough, 26 Highland Street in Lowell.
No, that's okay. Ellen likes me to live here. City council's on the table right now.
Okay.
She's not talking back to me about it, though. That's the whole problem. So, she's processing the question. Meaning my wife.
I understand. So, Eileen, are you there to talk about Karen Reed? Maybe not.
She's coming like 6:30,
Yeah.
6:45.
So we had an opinion piece in the local newspaper, the Sunday edition of the Lowell Sun, by Dr. Jenny Wen down at Mass General, and she was arguing that our immigration system is a health issue. She had high praise for Governor Tim Walz, not so much for candidate Trump and Vance. She talked mainly about Haitians and temporary protected status as not being illegal immigration. I guess if you don't want to call it illegal immigration, I'd call it irregular immigration.
Well, Cliff, if you were king of the world, how would you fix the immigration issue?
I'd build a big, beautiful wall. I'd deport illegal immigrants who broke the law, and I would take our current immigration system and clean it up and straighten it out and allow for more legal immigrants and not make it onerous on them.
A good plan. Thank you. Mike,
So-
if you were king of the world, how would you settle the immigrant issue?
As far as immigration goes, I mean, I would enforce the laws, and if people have to come in here legally, but I would change the system so it can be done more speedily. Because I mean, I've gone through that system with Kathy, and it's just ridiculous on how long it takes and the hoops you got to go through. I understand they want to have people to come here legally. They don't want them coming here and all of a sudden saying we need welfare or Social Security or medical. I understand all that, but there's got to be a better way to do this quicker. I mean, Kathy lived here previously for 25 years, and it still took 2.5 years to get her green card back. That doesn't make any sense. And she was already collecting Social Security and had a Medicare card because she lived and worked here. So, I mean, if if it's that hard for somebody who already lived here legally, what is it like for people trying to come in here for the first time? So the system, it needs to be changed, but we also have to enforce people coming here legally.
Hey, Mike, is your son married to a Kiwi?
Well, he's not married yet. They're getting married next March. But
Oh.
he
Tell
has
the audience what a Kiwi is, Cliff.
Mike,
I'll
tell
tell
us
you.
what a Kiwi is.
a New Zealand resident or citizen.
Yeah.
A native
The,
born?
the kiwi bird is the national bird there.
So is it a native born? Do they call themselves Kiwis or is that a nickname?
Yeah, they do that. Yeah.
Okay.
They call 'em.
Thank you.
But yeah, my son. They're not married yet, but they're getting married next year, March 8th. But my son has dual citizenship. Last year, because he lived there long enough and did all the requirements, he has New Zealand citizenship, so he has a New Zealand passport and a U.S. passport.
So was
See, I think that the dual citizenship means you have to pay taxes in both countries. And this dual citizenship would go right out the window.
No, that's not entirely true, John. So
I know it's
my
not.
son doesn't. My son does not have to pay taxes in the U.S. because he lives outside the country. He only has to pay taxes if he earns over a certain amount. And my brother, when he worked overseas, same thing. Once you go over a certain amount of tax income, then you start paying taxes. But the first, it's like $100,000 or more now that you don't pay taxes on if you're living in another country. I think you still have to file paperwork every year. That's what my son told me. But he doesn't pay taxes yet.
Well, Mike, what is the gain for having dual or tri or quad citizenship?
Well, from what my son told me, he says, depends on where you're traveling. If he's traveling around New Zealand using that passport, it makes it a lot easier going back and forth through stuff because it's in country. Or going to Australia, countries around there. Coming in the U.S., when they fly here, using his U.S. passport is probably easier. So it depends on where you're traveling.
So, do you have any sense of the comparison between your son immigrating to New Zealand and Kathy coming into the United States?
No, he was able to stay there a lot quicker. I mean, when he went there initially, they do have some requirements. He couldn't work at certain jobs when he came in to start, and he had to put so much money in a bank account initially before he decided to stay there and fill out the proper paperwork. He had to have a return ticket show when he was leaving the country. But then once he was able to stay there, he was limited on what jobs he could work at. And then once he had lived there for a certain amount of time, then he could work at more jobs. I mean, he has a son too, so that changed things. But it still took, I'm not sure if it took 5 or 7 years before he got citizenship.
What,
But he
Mike,
got-
can you say what drew him to New Zealand? Why did he go there?
Well, I mean, after college, when he graduated, he had said he didn't want to work in New York. He'd worked some places for a while, and then he told me, he says, I'm going to go to New Zealand for a while. He just wanted to go someplace different. He had been in South America at previous times. So he went there, he liked it. He came back, he went there in 2015, I believe, or 14, and stayed for a while, came back here for a little bit, for like 6 months, and then he's been there since, I think, 2015. So like 9 years.
Cool. Back to you, Cliff.
Okay, city council meeting tomorrow at 6 p.m. I found 4 items that I thought might be interesting to us. Eric Gitcher has asked that the law department draft an ordinance banning second-generation anticoagulant rodenticides from being used in the city of Lowell. They're called SGARs, and basically they take the blood and prevent it from coagulating, which is okay for killing rats, but unfortunately, say eagles will swoop in and grab a rat, and if the rat has that anticoagulant factor in their blood, then that'll get into the eagle and kill the eagle. So there's a movement in the state to ban the use of these SGARs, and Eric is trying to make that specific for Lowell. Councilor Robinson and Councilor Gitcher wants the law department to draft language to facilitate resident ability to select our mayor via ballot before the 2025 city council election. I think this is a bad idea.
Reed Mercer will always be the mayor. Cliff got 2 issues up there.
A question, was it easy for Mike's son to get citizenship in New Zealand, and was he given free stuff?
Well, no, it took like 5 to 7 years to get his citizenship, and the paperwork and other things, and he wasn't given free stuff. I mean, he had to pay taxes, work at his job. He wasn't given free stuff. I know that.
Yep. So,
can't remember how soon he was eligible to be under the New Zealand healthcare system, but they pay into that out of their, just like Canada, they pay out of their tax, out of their employment.
100%?
Take it out of you.
100%, Mike?
When you say 100%, what do you mean by that?
Well, employees in the state, government employees, they pay a portion of what it really costs, and the government supports the rest of their health coverage.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah.
and like if I buy coverage for one of my employees, the company pays 100% and the employee pays nothing. So, but a lot of companies, if you're an independent contractor, you gotta buy your own insurance. So 100% of it you paid for. So, did he ever discuss, is it subsidized?
Yeah, I understand what you're asking now, John. They pay into the system just like in Canada. It's taken out of your paycheck, and I'm not sure how much the employer. I can't answer that.
Understood.
The employer
Thank
pays
you.
for that.
Gotcha.
okay. I'm against electing the mayor by the citizens. I like the idea of the city council selecting the mayor, that he is the chairman of the committee, and I think that this change, it's not broken, so why fix it, is my
Cliff,
view.
I think that, let's give the mayor more power. Let's give the mayor a substantial raise, and let's elect the mayor. Let's have a full-time mayor.
What problem are you trying to fix?
I don't have a problem, but I just think a mayor is a mayor. If you're gonna have a mayor, make the position more powerful, whether it's a woman or a guy, makes no difference, but I think that should be more, I'm the mayor of the city of Lowell. In Lowell, it's a ceremonial position. You have zippity-doo-dah power. The government, local government gives you an office that you occupy. They give you an aide. And your job is to cut all the ribbons and kiss all the babies for the next 2 years.
And
Okay,
to be the chairman of the city council
and school committee.
and the school committee.
So,
Also, if there is a emergency in Lowell, you're in charge.
if they let you.
You just fire the city manager because you're in charge.
I've been around for a few emergencies, Cliff, and the only guy that ever saw really take charge was Bud Caulfield. Everybody else just deferred to the city. Let the manager handle it. let the manager handle it, deferred their power to the manager.
I don't think we've had a real emergency in Lowell.
Okay, we have the flood.
What about during the wintertime? You ever had emergencies to deal with all the
We
snow?
had a
or-
wicked bad flood. We had a wicked bad flood, and,
Back in the 1930s.
no, Rita Mercier was the mayor at the time, and she deferred her responsibilities to be supervising to the then city manager because he had his hands on everything, and she was confident he'd do an excellent job with it. That was my takeaway from what happened. Next time Rita comes, I'll ask her.
Nothing wrong with good delegation.
Well, I would think the city manager, because they're full-time, that's what they focus in on, is they would definitely have a better handle on all the communication and working with the different agencies to address an emergency.
But the
Well,
way
that
we,
makes
but like,
sense.
the way we
I mean-
the way we understand the law in Lowell is the mayor is the boss in an emergency. That's the way we understand the law.
Well, I mean, let's take an example of DeSantis. He's the governor, but, you know, he has people working with him. You know, he's the face of the emergency,
Yep.
but, you know, he's got a lot of people that are really handling. He's not, you know, he's communicating with them, but he's not communicating with all the other stuff, so.
All righty.
Okay, so we
Cliff,
have
how
a
do you
different...
feel about, you don't want to elect the mayor?
No.
Understood.
Okay, and Corey Belanger has requested that the mayor establish an ad hoc subcommittee regarding homelessness. I'm not sure where he's heading with that. I need to send him an email. And I'm wondering if he's planning on going back to when we were our own continuum of care.
Why don't you invite him into the show?
Okay. As opposed to letting the state run the homelessness program in Lowell. So that's an
I mean,
interesting issue. Go ahead.
homelessness is always an issue, but what's the stated, what you're saying is, it doesn't sound like they're gonna have an ad hoc committee, but what's the purpose of it? What's the end goal? I mean, what do they want to get accomplished, except they have a committee? Is somebody getting ready to run for office to show that they're addressing homelessness? Or are they really gonna do something about it? That's my question, you know.
Yeah,
Cliff,
Well-
you want to read this one?
only if you make it bigger, yeah. They take money out of your paycheck for health care and then they call it free. The mental gymnastics should be an Olympic sport.
Yeah, the problem is on that is, I get this all the time from friends of mine. Oh, Canadians, they get free health care. And I have to always stop them and say it's not free. And they go, yeah, but they're not paying. I said, yeah, they are. Every paycheck, and Kathy can attest to that, every paycheck they're taking money out, a pretty good substantial amount. So you may not have co-payments like we do here in the States, but also they have national health care, but not everything is covered. So there's different things that you have to pay for depending on what it is. So it's not free. It's been paid for by that individual up front. It's not really any difference than, Social Security. We pay for that. We get benefits when we reach a certain age, but we paid for that up front. The employer and us paid for it. And Medicare, even that, we pay for that up front and we're still paying. So in Canada and New Zealand, it's not free. My son's told me he has to do co-pays or has to pay different things. Not everything is covered.
Yeah, and England supposedly has a national health program, but there are people that go off to other countries to get operations because things are so slow. We do.
Yeah, it all depends though, because like when Kathy had to have stuff done, some surgery and different medical procedures, she didn't have to wait as long. The only reason when she had her cataracts done is because we were down in Florida. That's why we had to schedule that ahead of time. I mean, I just find that it depends on where you live. You know, if you're living in a bigger metropolitan area where they maybe have more hospitals and more facilities and access to different procedures, it doesn't take as long as you think. But if you're living in areas that don't have a lot of medical facilities, and it's similar in the United States too, you may have to wait.
One of my undertaker buddies living down south, he just had his hair restored in a different country. And he said, only $5,000, John. Cliff?
Another study for people who don't contribute to society, homelessness. You know, but some of the homeless are mentally ill. Some just are unlucky,
Some are just lazy.
and some are just lazy.
All
Yeah,
have a EBT card. We are subsidizing this lifestyle.
I don't entirely agree with that comment because there's a lot of mental illness and people have gotten into drugs. And I mean, if you've never gone through that, I know people who have. It's very hard to break the cycle.
Mike, it's not hard. All you have to do is just, okay, Mike, I know you're mentally ill, but you can't live on the sidewalk anymore. You've got to move into a different place. And you'll say, I don't want to. You can't make me. Okay, I'm shutting off your EBT card.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. You're right, John. That's unfortunate. So, I mean, that's more common than people realize that, you know, people want to try to help them and they just say, no, you can't make me. I'm not going to do it.
Well, Mike,
So-
Massachusetts is so screwed up. There are people in prison in Massachusetts that their EBT card continues to grow monthly. They never shut it off. That's how well-run the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is.
Yeah, that's the bureaucracy of people not realizing what's going on. But it's not just that. I mean, look at the things with Social Security, the overpayments that people are, you know, they're overpaying. You would think an automated system that they have, and with the, you know, the records they have, that they would be able to manage that better. But, you know, what happens is people are working in the government and they're working at a job and they point things out and the supervisor says, stop rocking the boat, just do your job and don't worry about that. So they stop worrying because they want to keep their job. If they rock the boat too much, then they may not have a job. I mean, I ran into that when I worked at Kodak. We had contractors coming in and my boss, I'd say, look, they're not doing their job right. And we shouldn't be fixing it for them, make them come back in. Well, he didn't want to go through the paperwork and on the phone with people. So after a while, I just stopped complaining because he says, I don't want to hear it anymore. You know, we'll fix it ourselves. So that it happens that way in a lot of cases.
Comment from the audience. Here you go, Cliff.
What kind of health care coverage do you think the members of Congress have? Total.
They don't get what we have. I know that for sure. My uncle used to work for the U.S. printing office, so they had a whole different system of stuff, and they definitely have a more, I guess I'll say, comprehensive plan than most people have.
Yes. And so
What country on the planet don't government officials get better care than everyone in the country? Just name one.
I don't know.
There isn't any. The government officials always have better health care, better security. The government must survive.
But things are changing. The benefits and what you're getting. I know in New York they keep changing for government employees there. They're not getting the same stuff they used to get.
Mike, I'll guarantee you this. If Lori Trahan goes to Lowell General Hospital, and she has the same sore throat as me, she immediately gets tended to. There's no delay. I mean, everybody else, we got a 2, 3, 4 hour wait. Lori Trahan comes in the back door. Hey, how are ya? Not picking on Lori Trahan. I don't care who the congressperson is. They get better care.
Well,
Yep.
the other
Because
side
they're
of that
gonna
is,
Here comes the princess.
the other side of that is, if you're running the hospital,
Oh,
it's
donuts
easier
too?
for you if you just get rid of the
Whatever one you want to lose. I'll charge
people
for
that
everything.
are attract
best.
attention.
Thank you.
Just a matter of
Well, I mean, it's not-
efficiency.
Look at this,
I mean,
baby.
John, it's not any different for, oh, that looks good.
Yeah, strawberry donuts.
We do chocolate.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, it's not any different in a hospital if you're Elon Musk or somebody else coming in that's got money, or somebody who contributed to the hospital. They're gonna attend to those people right away. They're gonna go to the front of the line.
Mike, my cousin, her name was Franny. She's since gone to heaven.
It's not just Congress.
Whenever I went to the hospital, if Franny was working, I went right to the front of the line. And so it's who you know. A lot, in the local hospital anyway.
Okay, can we get back to, thank you.
Did I
Yeah.
lose you?
No, ordinances. The proposed camping ordinance is out. You can find it online. I read through it. It seemed pretty good to me, but the issue that might disturb the producer is restrictions on unlawful camping during a period when shelter is unavailable. So it makes some exceptions when shelter is not available. And I wonder how we're doing on that, because not everyone is in a
Shelter's
shelter.
home one Friday, they go home, we'll go home one Friday. Bye-bye. See you Tuesday.
I don't think that's true.
Okay.
They are there Saturday and Sunday, because
Administration isn't.
the homeless are still inside the shelter.
Okay.
You think that they're there all by themselves, managing it themselves?
Administration's not there.
So does the administration need to be there?
You can't get in unless you go through administration.
I see what he's saying.
I don't think that that's true.
Okay. I was on the board, Cliff.
Well, then, you screwed it up.
Yep. I would sit there and say, it's 7 days a week. We don't have the money. We need more money. They always need more money.
How many people do you need to have one person 24/7?
Cliff,
John?
on this particular issue, I'm not, they didn't want to hear it. And on most of the boards that I serve, it's
That's like
crazy.
talking
It's
to my
crazy. It's
brother
crazy.
Lance.
It's crazy what people think, okay? When you're on the board of directors, the CEO, president, chief cook and bottle washer, whoever the boss is of the organization, they work for you.
Yeah,
Board of directors members don't understand that. Oh, I'm on the board, but I'll do whatever the LMNOP or whatever they want to call CEO. They invented the word CEO so they could give the president a raise. What a stupid thing. Well, it says the president can't, we'll invent CEO, chief executive officer. That's a whole new job. We'll just give you more money. Who the hell's higher than the president? CEO was invented to give the guy a raise.
all
And it's
right,
usually a guy.
all right.
And the board of directors, who runs the place? The board of directors or the president? Or CEO?
Okay,
That's a question to you, Cliff.
I'm sorry. What was the question?
He's hungry. I heard his stomach.
Say
growl.
it again. What is your question?
Who's in charge of the organization?
The board of directors.
And board you serve on, who's the boss?
I've never served on a board.
You're on the homeless commission.
No, the license, right? The license
Who
commission,
appoints you?
the city
The
manager.
appointing official is usually the boss.
The city manager appoints,
So the
when
city
I was
manager,
on the continuum of care.
city manager is the boss.
On the other hand, do you see where they just fired the CEO of CVS?
I did hear that, I don't know why.
Yeah.
So Eileen, how was your weekend?
My weekend was good.
Wait, just
Low-key.
a second. The number's 5.
What about 5? Channel 5?
The answer to the question that I asked, and then you went off like my brother Lance and
Don't pick on
wandered
Lance.
all over
Don't pick
the
on Lance, he's not here. Continue.
back 40 acres. I pick on Lance all the time.
Hey, he's not here, it's not fair. Call him on your phone. Let's have him on the phone.
What, you want me to wake him up?
Yeah, and you can argue with him there.
He lives in California.
It's very
He can
early.
go back to sleep. Is he no buckaroo like us?
Oh, no, he's young. He's like 8 years younger than I am.
Yeah, which makes him how old, Cliff?
72. 73.
4.
Ooh. I forget you get older as the years go.
They do.
So he's an old buckaroo as well.
Thank you.
No,
Okay, so why
Just
did
a
they
young
fire
guy.
the CVS guy?
I don't know why she was fired.
Oh, it's a girl. Hard to fire a woman.
So, Eileen, you're having no school committee meeting this week?
Nope, because it's in every other week.
Oh. And how'd it go last week?
It went quick. Everything goes quick now.
Okay. And anything new on that Karen Reed, I can't remember that other woman's
Sandra
name.
Birchmore.
Birchmore, yeah.
I know there's a lot going on with the Karen Reed case. The Detective Lieutenant Brian Tully was just removed with the new position of the colonel for the Mass State Police. So he was removed and he was put in a different department. That happened, a lot of back and forth between the corruption, the Betterow letters.
Hold that thought for 1 second.
Yeah.
And homelessness has become big business. The more homeless, the more funding. Jim hit the nail right on the head. There's no end game for people and I would ask for an end game at the homeless shelter. There is none.
Yeah, it's like city government, all types of government, either want you completely dependent on them or not dependent on them at all.
There will always be homeless, was what the executive officer would say. And that's not on the agenda.
On whose agenda?
The agenda for the night's discussion.
All right. So, you're quoting scripture?
Thy will be done.
Yeah. So,
That's one of my favorites.
Mike, are you someplace different? You-
Massachusetts Teachers Association.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm in New York. I'm up in New York. I came up on Friday, Eileen, to come up for our end of season soccer high school referees banquet yesterday and Sunday. I actually did a soccer game on Friday night, so they had me. They knew I was coming up and they scheduled me to do one.
Hey,
So,
Mike, I didn't hear banquet before. What kind of food did they have?
oh, so we were at. We usually have our banquet at the Italian American Club. So we have hors d'oeuvres.
Like
we usually
what?
will
What kind of
cover-
hors d'oeuvres? Like finger sandwiches? Pickles?
No, we have a dinner, but this is like hors d'oeuvres before dinner. So
Scallops wrapped in bacon?
no, we didn't have that. We had like cheese and some stuff on flatbread, different stuff like that. And then we have a dinner, a buffet dinner. We have pasta, salad. Then we have different vegetables. We had like cauliflower and broccoli, chicken, sausage and Italian sausage and peppers and onions and bread, rolls.
That's what I'd be going after, those sausage and onions and peppers. Nice stuff. Love that.
I mean, we have that, and then there's a bar there if people want drinks. We'll usually cover some of the beer, but
How about dessert?
no, we didn't have any dessert. We're referees. You don't need more food, so.
All right.
I went to that Kim's donut shack earlier this morning to see if I can get those warm donuts that Dominic brought before, and they weren't open, even though they were supposed to be open at 6. Then I went to the donut shack so I could do things a little differently, and they were closed. So I ended up at 7-Eleven.
Oy.
Yeah.
So these are 7-Eleven donuts.
They are, but they've out, I was driving by, and I was like,
Good to,
they look
Sure,
good.
they'll still taste good.
good to know. Thank you, Eileen.
All right, you were saying, Cliff, the MTA.
The MTA, do they cover our teachers?
So there is a difference. So there's the MTA and there's the ATF.
I'm going to give Fru the day off because he had some internet problems.
MTA, no, there's a UTL. I'm confused. There's two different types of organizations. So there's the MTA, and I know that's involved in Methuen, okay? In Lowell, it's a little different. I want to say Lowell may be the AFT.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, the MTA is a subset of the National Education Association, and our MTA is pushing an anti-Israeli agenda. Do you think that filters down into the what they're teaching the students?
You know what? It may or it may not, but it depends on who the teacher is. It depends on what the school's culture is, I think. It depends on. Being a teacher, it's really hard to see where the MTA comes in. Slide over. I'm getting shooed away.
So,
Slide
it's
over.
probably
Please
time to
slide
mention that we're on City Life. I'm Cliff Krieger, your host, and our guest has just arrived, Liam Skimmer, the Superintendent of Schools. He's going to slide in next to me, next to Eileen Delrossi, and we, of course, have Mike Smith on Zoom, and our producer, John McDonough. So, welcome to our show. Thank you. John, you were saying?
Question to Mike before we move on to Dr. Skinner. Mike, what is the state of officiating youth sports these days? Are the parents still crazy?
Yes. Well, it's not just the parents, the coaches and players sometimes. I had a top level boys game on Friday night, two of the top boys schools in our area, and I had 6 yellow cards, and I carded both the head coaches for dissent, yelling and screaming, in addition to cards to the other players. I've seen since COVID much more disrespect to the officials, not respecting their calls, arguing with them, coaches screaming from the sideline. You try to talk to them. I mean, it's not what it used to be. The parents, most of the time, the parents don't really know the rules of soccer, so they're yelling and screaming about stuff they don't know what they're talking about. So, but there's a lot more disrespect than I've seen in the past. And that's hurting us recruiting officials or keeping officials, especially the younger ones, because, who wants to go to their job and get screamed and yelled at,
So it's like teaching.
Yeah. So, Mike, how many yellow cards make a red card?
Well, so individually you can give a yellow card, a caution they call it, for whatever the reason, to a player or coach. You don't card spectators, though. If you get 2 yellow cards in a game, you get a red card. And then you're out of the game, and your team loses one of the players on the field. So in soccer, there's 11 players on each side. If one of your players gets a red card, then you have to play with 10 players for the rest of the game. I've had games where red cards have gone out, and teams only had 9 players left, or less sometimes,
Yeah.
because of red cards.
Gee. You had a job where you're being screamed at all the time? That's like basic training in the military. just seems normal. So,
I'm sure it's senseless, where, at least in the military, there's some sense to it.
so Dr. Skinner, Friday we were talking about the Myers-Briggs test. Have you ever taken the Myers-Briggs test?
If I have, it was 20 or more years ago. Haven't heard of that one for a long time, Cliff.
Do you remember what you were?
I remember I'm an introvert.
Yeah.
I know that. I can be an extrovert about my work, but I'm an introvert. I'm a thinker. I guess there's a thinking scale.
Yes.
I'm a thinker. Remind me what else there is on there.
The sensor or intuitor.
Yes, sensor.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And then a J or a P, are you highly organized and it has to happen, or are you kind of relaxed?
Yeah, no, I'm the highly organized, has to happen type for sure. Did I pass the test, Cliff?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Push the microphone closer to Liam, please.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I'm an INTP, and it's tough.
INTP. What?
I'd say it's tough because as an introvert, to go out and have to extrovert, especially when you have to extrovert at work.
Right.
And then when you get home, you just shut down.
yeah, well, that's me. I understand that. Yeah, you're a TV host for crying out loud. That's going to be very difficult, right?
I was going
Yeah.
to say, you're excelling as being an extrovert here.
Right.
But then my wife's an extrovert, and I go home and I shut down. And who can she extrovert with? So,
Well,
So-
what can I ask you? What does it matter in terms of this Myers-Briggs? Why is it significant?
I just found it was it's an interesting discussion, but B, I think that it helps us to learn sometimes, it helps us to understand that there are different personalities and different approaches to things, and that we need to show some respect for that. I used that one time. I was in charge of a committee. The Air Force was doing an innovation study, and I got one of the studies, and I had people from all over the Air Force coming to Washington to meet and to think up ideas. And I was able to get my boss to fund someone to come in and give everyone the Myers-Briggs test and then discuss it as a way of breaking the ice and also as a way of helping people understand we're not all the same.
That's good. Sure.
Yeah.
I can see it being helpful for teams. If you're working with people and you have different personalities, it might be helpful for people to understand them.
I thought you did it to keep in Martha's good graces, so she'd understand you better.
Well,
That too?
yes. Yeah. Well, she and I took it together the first time when we went to the Army War College, and she came out saying that obviously that hers was the hard job because she was the extroverted feeler who had to
Figure you out.
deal with all the other people in the family who were not like her. So how is it going as superintendent? You've been there, what, almost a year?
A year and a half, well, yeah.
Oh.
It's about, well, no, not quite a year and a half, a year and 4 months. But it's going very well, thank you. It's going very well. It's I think in any job, it's easier in your second year, right? The first
Yeah.
year you're new to it, and a lot to learn. I still have a lot to learn, but I understand the rhythms and the cycles involved and the responsibilities involved a lot better second year round.
Yeah, so what's a day like for you?
Well, the days are quite varied, but they usually start in a similar way. I try to spend the first couple of hours of the day
Praying?
no, but at schools.
Yeah.
So between roughly 7:30 to 10 or 7:30 to 10:30 or so, I'll spend time in schools. I visit schools and in cycles with particular themes in mind when I go there. I have meetings with individual assistant superintendents. I do that. Each day there's usually one of those meetings at least, if not two. I have, various commitments, maybe even in the evening time. This evening there's an event. A couple of nights a week there'll be an event, or maybe more than a couple of nights a week. And in between, lots of planning, sometimes meeting with community partners. I work well with the with City Hall folks, as well as with various community partners across the city of Lowell. So they tend to be busy, long, but varied and interesting days.
So Eileen fed me this next question. So do you want to ask this question about the
Sure.
3 impactfuls?
What are your most impactful 3 accomplishments since becoming superintendent?
Wow, okay. That's a great question to be asked,
Yeah.
because it gives you an opportunity. So I don't oftentimes think in terms of accomplishments, because I think there's a lot to do. And if let me, I'll say a couple of things to answer the question directly, if you allow me then to expand a bit.
Yeah.
But hiring, number one way to influence any organization, a school district, hiring. And I think that we've been really successful. And I say we, because you don't ever do any of this on your own, but we've recruited and hired super people. Okay, I'll name some of them, right? But right most directly around me in central office, the cabinet members, Wendy Crocker-Roberge is an assistant superintendent for schools, superb, came from the Pine Arts School in Lowell. We have hired a new curriculum person, a new finance person, and so we've one more, a new student support services assistant superintendent. These are really high-functioning, very professional people. They're already making an impact. So and I'll give you an example, 2 examples that come to mind. This time last year, we were struggling to finish a financial report. It's called an end-of-year report. Don't ask me why, it's due at the end of September. And we were late, we got an extension, we couldn't meet the extension, we hired a company to come and help us. It cost about $40,000 to put together this end-of-year report. This year, no problem. It's completely finished. We're not spending any money on anybody else outside of who we've got in the office.
And that's Derek Pinto's position.
Derek
He's
Pinto,
CFO,
yes,
right?
and Derek would be quick to say that the credit goes to Jackie Kelleher, who is responsible for doing much of the work in that report. Before we hired our current curriculum person, we had estimates between $100,000 to $300,000 to help us with a literacy review that we need to undertake this year. We hired a terrific assistant superintendent for curriculum. No need to go outside the house. We have all the expertise we need, and that curriculum, that literacy review is ongoing with the people who we have. So, biggest accomplishment, if there is one, is hiring, finding really good people, and then a whole series of organization attributes, getting the house in order. Responding to the school committee members in a timely way. I couldn't understand when I became superintendent why so many motions of the school committee were lying on a report for months and months and months. So one of the things I've committed to is responding promptly to the school committee. So one of the most important duties we have is to provide the committee the information that they need to make decisions. We purchased Jeanne d'Arc School. That's an important accomplishment. I think important even more so going forward into the future. We very much need the space.
How's that coming along, rehab?
Rehab is in the planning phase. So we don't expect the school to be available to us until 2 years from now. We expect to be in a fully functioning school. Yeah.
But Did I hear you opened up part of it for children with learning disabilities? I may have used the wrong term there.
No, you did well. You
Yeah.
did well. So yes, you did hear that, and you heard right. Jeanne d'Arc School itself was going to require renovation before we can move in there. It actually is in great
Yeah.
condition, but it doesn't have an elevator, which is required for public schools. So there's a couple of projects like that that need to be tackled before we'll be given permission to open it as a public school. There is, however, with the school itself, there's a rectory. Sometimes we call it the convent. I'm not sure if that's the correct term. But we've been able to use that building already for a school for students with autism. It's called the 80 School. It's actually in Chelmsford, and we're trying very hard to bring it back to Lowell. We have far more students needing to attend that school than there is space. And so we've been able to open some additional space in Jeanne d'Arc's rectory.
And that's where the overflow, you were seeing an overflow from the high school students from the 80, and that's where they went?
Very good, yes. 8th graders to 12th graders, they're able to go now to the Jeanne d'Arc rectory. And, these things are important for the proper space and classroom space for people to work in, for students to be educated in. But it's also money saving. If you can't accommodate students with disabilities in your own district, you have to send them out of district, and you're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars per student when you do that. So bringing them in-house, bringing them into the district at Jeanne d'Arc is a big win for us in terms of appropriate programming, but also saving dollars.
So, all right, so I guess I have a follow-up question.
And when Eileen's down, there's 3 issues that the audience wants responded to.
So will that school be basically a CSA school, like eventually to bring over all the kids from the 80-day school? So that's the plan for that as like a replacement?
Most likely, yes. We think it may have room for the current 80 students and possibly some additional space for additional programming as well.
Okay.
Let's let John come up with his items.
Of course, sports is messed up when we have men playing sports and girls sports.
Wait, how do we handle that in Lovely Lowell, Massachusetts?
We have not had that issue.
When we have that issue, what will we do?
What is the issue? I don't
A
understand.
man played in girls' sports.
I haven't heard of it. Am I missing something?
Your introvertedness isn't letting you
Yeah,
check the news.
I haven't heard. Yeah, it's not any news that I've come across.
So nothing will be done.
I can't hear. I don't know anything about it. I've never heard of it, John. Can you give me an example? Is this a real thing?
Yeah, there's a real thing out in the Midwest. There is a school where there is a male transitioning to female who's playing in a female sport, and now I think we're up to about 5 other schools have forfeited the game rather than play against this team that has a man transitioning to woman. So, yeah, it is a thing in certain parts of the country
and
right
even
now.
close to here, there was a situation at the Lowell Collegiate Charter Public School. And I don't know if you still have that video of the boy that was playing on the girls' team. And the girl got seriously hurt because they identified as being a
Competing
girl.
team.
Right.
We've not had it in Lowell Public Schools. I think that the Olympics have had it. I believe the Olympics were this summer, and there were some controversial examples there. We've not had to deal with it in Lowell Public Schools. I think, John, I don't have a good answer. We'd have to look at the law, and we'd have to look at what our policy is to respond to something like that. And it just hasn't come up, so I don't have
Eileen just said, no one can hear me, so the issue is, we're gonna have an opposing team with girls. There'll be a 6-foot transgender person on the other team. Looking forward to, it'll just be, we're playing next week, what do you wanna do, boss?
Right. Say, like, yeah, we're playing Billerica, and they have a 6-foot boy on the girls' team that is playing a Lowell High team, say, or a middle school, or however. So what John is saying is, like, how would you handle that? Or how would the athletic director handle that? Or how would you advise whoever's in charge to handle that if it does come up, because it's very likely to come up.
Well, so again, not anything I'm familiar with or have come across. I think that I can't imagine it happening by surprise, right? So I think the rosters are filed and
Yes.
you know, you have to do all that.
Not on your radar yet.
Not on my radar, but
Okay,
yeah,
second question.
yeah.
Cliff?
When does the current contract expire with the Lowell teachers? Will they agree to a freeze on a wage increase so that those resources can be used for the children?
Well, it's a fine question. I think it's a little bit late. We just signed a new contract with the teacher. I'm very pleased to tell you we did that because it's a good thing for the city and it's a good thing for our schools. But we have a new 3-year contract with the teachers union. That was we came to that just this summer. But you know, so I think it's a good contract. I'm very pleased that we have it, so we can have labor peace for the next 3 years and get on with education
Did you
students.
cover inflation for the teachers?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, we did.
Last question in this round.
How will we test Lowell students if MCAS has gone in this election? The person asking the question has gotten ahead of the notes, so yeah, we're going to ask that question.
You ready for it? I don't think we're going to be, I'm going to answer the question I wish I was asked, right? But so, yeah, we have.
That's okay, Kamala,
Yeah,
it's good.
You can do that, thank you, okay. We have to have some way of determining if a child should graduate from high school. Don't you think there should be some standards, or we should just decide that, you know, and so, by the way, it doesn't have to be MCAS. It could be XYZ test, or, you know, whatever replacement for MCAS if we could find a better means, right? But right now, I know that question is on the ballot in a couple of weeks from now, and I am
Well, let's
not.
start with the fact that, how do you feel about MCAS?
I feel
How
great.
should people vote? Should they vote to abolish MCAS as a graduation requirement, or should
No.
they retain it?
No, we absolutely have to have MCAS, but what I was saying was,
Yeah.
it wouldn't have to be, if somebody had an alternative to it, we could entertain that as a better alternative. But I'm saying you have to have some sort of a standard. When I first came here, Cliff, from rural Ireland in the late 80s, there was no MCAS and there was no standard. And you had newspaper and TV stories about kids graduating who couldn't read. And you had failing schools year after year after year. The MCAS test has set a standard, and whether we like it or not, we can tell if we're doing all right, and we can tell if we're doing poorly. And if we're doing mediocre, which students are succeeding and which ones are not, and so on. So we have to have some sort of standard, I believe, and I very much, we don't have an alternative for MCAS, so I would encourage people to keep MCAS while we have it.
I want to just push in there that in Lowell, almost nobody stays back. No matter how poorly you're doing in that grade, you're getting promoted to the next grade. I can't read in the 4th grade. I get pushed to the 5th grade. Why does that happen?
There is no good system where students who are retained end up being successful. So we talk about a dropout factory, right? And if you in schools, you retain children from year to year. Let's say you keep a kid back in 5th grade, and the child is repeating 5th grade. What's the record on that? Do kids who are kept back in a grade end up doing well the second time around?
Did you ever stay back?
It did actually, yes.
How'd you like it the second time around?
Well, in my case, it was probably it's an outlier, so it wouldn't be helpful. I missed the course in high school that I really needed to get onto what I need. It was a high-level math course that I couldn't make sense of the first time around, and I stayed back in what would be considered the junior year of high school, and it worked out for me the second time around. But
Same thing happened when I stayed back in the 2nd grade. My mother told me all this wonderful fairy tales how it really wasn't anything to do with me. I had to stay back. I loved it, taking the second round.
Yeah. So John, you know what you and I are in that instance? We're outliers. My mom, to this day, believes that smoking is not harmful.
Same.
Do you know why she believes that?
Only in heaven.
You know why she believes that?
Because of the Marlboro Man, and
She-
it was promoted, right?
Well, it's because she points to a neighbor who smoked all his life and lived well into his 90s. So how could smoking be harmful because this guy lived into his, right? He was an outlier. Most people who smoke put their health in jeopardy. The vast majority of students, John, despite you and I being the outliers, the vast majority of students who stay back in a grade level never, ever recover. And they become high school dropouts. That's why retaining kids is not the answer. You have to figure out what they need and how to support them and give them extra help, extra time, and extra support, and diagnosing what their learning needs are. That's the way to go.
Zeroing in on a fourth grader who cannot read, how will he or she succeed?
They have to learn to read, of course. I'm not saying you promote a child from one grade to the next without fixing the problem, right? Now, the first problem is that students should never get to grade 4 without being able to read, right? That shouldn't happen. By the way, in the pre-MCAS days, if you want to go back that far, students could graduate high school and not be able to read, right? That did happen. That was not very common, but that was exceptional cases that did happen. When you don't have standards, anything goes. But your fourth grader who can't read, John, does that child have a dyslexia? Does that child have a disability? Why can't the child read, John?
Right, but, okay.
So we need to
I know
figure
Mike
that
has
out, and we
say
need to
something
support the
too.
child.
And how do we?
Can
do it?
I,
Wait. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, so I'm not a teacher, but I used to teach skiing, snowboarding, instruct different things over the years. A lot of people don't realize that there's a lot of different ways people learn. And like you were pointing out about dyslexia, but there's also other things that people learn sometimes by seeing things, by reading it, internally, externally. So the real key, and I tend to agree with our superintendent there, that you have to figure out how the child learns the best, and then get them the information they need for learning that way. And that's the tough part, because you got to figure out how they learn and how do you get it to them so that they can learn. So I just wanted to put my comment in
Well,
on
this
it.
next comment for the audience, and now, listen to Liam for a while, and thank you for your time this morning, Doctor. The average citizen really believes this statement.
Right.
The public schools push the kids through the system, no accountability. Now, until this morning, that's how I felt about it.
So,
Please tell us more.
can I just make one comment too?
Sure.
So, I feel like understanding the research where it came out that children do not benefit from being retained for various reasons, right? I get that. So it was better to send students along. But with that data and with that research that came out, we forgot that accountability piece and to fund the piece of what they're really missing. Because that's where I see in my district and many districts, most likely even in Lowell, like how do we get that intervention of what that student missed to them, right? And that's where I see that discrepancy overall, because we're not honing in on that anywhere. And we are just letting kids go and allowing lack of accountability, and now we still have kids even graduating without being able to read. We have kids that we need to figure out how they can learn best. And this is reminding me also of, modifications on IEPs and so forth. I have a child who's an exceptional learner, and he's great in some areas and not so great in others, and he had those modifications, accommodations on the MCAS to have text to speech, speech to text, but he didn't. Every year he's got partially meeting on his MCAS. This is the first year I remember him telling me, he's like, I don't know how to do the text to speech, I can't do this Beach to text and like, no one is helping you? And he said, no, but so I wasn't surprised when I got his score report, it said not meeting in all the subjects. It breaks my heart, but also I think districts need to tighten up and assure that they're doing these accommodations, modifications correctly. And I'm not just talking to Lowell, I'm talking about my district and other districts, because when we have kids like this that are identified, that we can help, and assuring that there's compliance with how we're helping these students to be able to express their information and express what they comprehend. So, yeah, so I have a lot to say.
Wonderful.
About that.
Well, my experience is that you move. I passed all grades through grade 7 on probation. And then my parents moved. We moved to a different state. All my grades went up. Well, except maybe shop. I was doing okay in shop.
Cliff, I want to take us back to the commenter who we had on the screen,
Yeah.
and those last two words, no accountability. That's what people fear. You're passing students from grade to grade, no accountability. Let me draw the connection here that right? We talked about MCAS. There's your accountability. Do you realize if we didn't have MCAS, we probably wouldn't be here talking about kids getting pushed from grade level to grade level because you wouldn't know about it. We know that certain number of students are passing or failing or not meeting standards because we have the MCAS test. If we didn't have that test, there literally would be no accountability. That's what keeps us accountable. And that's why we need some sort of a standard.
Well, I got a pat you on the back because I've been doing this for like 20 years as a hobbyist in the media, and you're the first person to tell me the reason nobody stays back. Other people, superintendents, union leaders, big shots in the school system, I'll get back to you on that, was the answer. When I asked how many kids stayed back last year.
Yeah.
I'll get back to you on that. So
Kid-
thank you for your answer.
Kids do stay back, John, and I can tell you, there's actually some cases, they're very few, but it's possible that being retained in a grade level is good for a child. I'm not saying it can never happen. If kids are particularly immature and they don't have the social skills in kindergarten to go into first and so on, there are specific cases where it could be helpful. Generally, if the child isn't learning, your example, 4th grade, and they didn't pass their tests in 4th grade and you retained them in 4th grade, you have to look back and say, for all the kids that we retain, what happens the second time around? Is the kid more successful or less successful? The answer is really, really clear-cut. The vast majority of students who are retained are less successful the next year, and the year after that, and the year after that, even less so, and they become high school dropouts. And so it doesn't work.
Two more issues. Is the mother still in charge of staying back?
The
mother
parent,
has to say,
parents, yes, parents do have the final say, I believe, yes.
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay. So next two issues are coming up, and Cliff, you have a better microphone than I do.
Should the federal government be involved with education, like the Department of Education? Test scores have either stayed the same or gone down since. It seemed that the only thing we blame it on is the funding.
So, you want me to take that one?
Take that one, since John has managed to destroy the
Yeah.
whole line
Sure,
here.
sure.
Questions or report?
Yeah, that was good. Thank you for the questions, right? So, if the federal government was not at all, let's just take that for example, the federal government has got nothing to do with education, then it's all down to the states. What makes you think that each state would design their own system independently and that it would work? Right? Don't you think if you didn't have any sort of federal standards that some states would figure it out and be more successful than others? Right? So there's value in that, I think, but there's also value in there being some form of, let's call it national curriculum. At the moment, each state sets their own curriculum, but I think it is helpful for the federal government to be involved for certain reasons.
That said, Leo, the United States school system is nowhere near the smartest school system on the planet, is it?
No, but it's not that far. We have to be careful with that one because we worry that in Singapore or Finland or some of these places, those school systems are more successful than ours. That's true. But the United States is a very sophisticated, very successful country. And its education system is not so far behind as people would like to say. And in some of those other cases, like Singapore or Finland, are two that I've mentioned, the circumstances are very, very different when you try to compare them, right? We have a lot of poverty in this country. We have a lot of disadvantages as well, and they impact the education system also. But we have some terrific results. We still produce the best research. We still produce the most advanced science of any country in the world, and so those things matter as well.
But we produce less engineers, fewer engineers than Russia.
Well, that's because of our economy, right? What are you going to incentivize? If you want a lot more engineers, start paying engineers and make it an incentive for kids in university to choose engineering as a career. You don't think they'll do that? Of course they will.
Next question, and then we'll mark off the questions for a while.
Kids are allowed to be distracted and lazy. Where are the parents? Yeah, I've got my Zoe question for later on.
Can I make a comment on that, Cliff?
Yeah.
Before we throw the superintendent to the wolves on that one, so. When I was growing up, I come home every day, and my parents would say, okay, what homework do you have to do? Not only would they ask me, they would check my homework and check that I was reading or doing what I was supposed to be doing. I think, unfortunately, some of the struggles in the school today are because parents aren't putting the same effort. They're busy, maybe they're working 2 jobs, I don't know, they're distracted, but they are not putting the same effort in I think my parents put in to make sure I was learning. I mean, I remember, you had to read, or my parents would read to me. I think some of the problems in some of the school districts is the parents, single parent moms or whatever, that the kids aren't getting the additional support they need at home, so it's all falling on the schools. And they can only do so much, to help the child. But if they don't get that support, the additional support from the home system, then that's why some of these kids I think struggle quite a bit.
Can I make an additional comment on to Mike's point?
Go ahead.
I had an issue with one of my students last week. I had to reach out to the parent, and he said, and this is a 6th grader, when she comes home, she just tells me that her homework is online, and I have no way to access that. I don't know where that's going. And he asked, can you please send home paper so I can see it and I can do it with her? So I think we've advanced so much without taking into account that some people are still looking for that pen and paper homework and need to see it. And I think that's why it's so important to have these curriculum nights and reach out to parents and be able to explain where their students' homework lives. Because for a lot of people, having homework in a Google Classroom or so forth is a very foreign concept, and they can't grasp that still. And some kids are very proficient and will do it on their own, but there are these kids that just want to manipulate their parents and say it's too hard, which I believe is the majority of kids today. They'll look for any little excuse to get out of doing anything and know to say, oh, it's online, it's here, it's there. And so it's defeating.
John.
It's defeating sometimes. So I think we have to realize where so much got lost in translation with technology as well.
We're losing our host, so I'm going to take advantage for a minute. For the listener who gave us that comment about students being distracted and lazy, I think people like John, if he's listening to me, and Cliff, and the guy who said the kids are distracted and lazy, that person's either old or getting old. When we were kids, did your parents ever tell you that the music you were listening to was garbage? My parents did. Are you kidding me? We're listening to rock and roll and pop music. It's such rubbish compared to the beautiful singers of old, right? And now I catch myself saying to my kids, that's not even music you're listening to. It didn't even sound like, that's not a song, it's not proper music at all, right? And then I realize, oh man, I'm getting old, right?
They don't say, let's make love anymore either, do they?
Okay, but John, the listener who gave us the comment about kids being distracted and lazy, you know, we've done that for generations. We've always, older people as we get, we always say that. Your parents probably said it to you, John McDonough, right? You're getting distracted and lazy because you're playing outside all day. And now we say the kid is distracted and lazy because he's playing online all day or because he's doing something, listening to music, right? These are things that parents have said to kids for generations. Today, our students today are working harder and more so at their lessons and their learning than has ever happened.
I'm going to go fix the Facebook.
Go look, fix the Facebook, but you know what else?
It reminds me of that old joke.
Yeah.
When they founded the U.S. Marine Corps at Tun's Tavern in Philadelphia, the first Marine recruit came in and they got his name and they wrote it down and they had him make his mark and they said, go wait outside that door on the bench. And then the next recruit came in and they took his name and his birthday and all that. And they said, make your mark, and he made his mark and they said, go wait out on the bench. And so the second recruit goes out and he sits down next to the first recruit, and the first recruit turns to him and says, let me tell you how it was in the old Corps. So, yeah, it's always been that way.
Yeah, always been that way.
Yeah. So, MCAS, what about Mass Corps? I saw an article this last week. It was obviously put there for me to bring this up. There's a Mass Corps is set out by the DESE, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, but half the schools in Massachusetts don't follow that as a way of deciding whether or not someone can graduate. I thought, when I graduated from high school, I thought that you served your time and then you were released, but I had no idea.
Well, it used to be that you served your time and then you were released, and that's what was wrong with the system. You really had to show up and serve your time, right? But Mass Corps is a state effort to outline a rigorous set of studies that a kid should have going through high school. Lowell High School is adopting that, Cliff, and we, you have to take a certain number and level of English classes each year, math classes every year, science class and so forth, in order to meet this Mass Corps standard. And but by doing that, we know that when our students finish high school, they've been through a rigorous course of studies. So I'm in favor of that one.
Yeah, I will say I'm in favor. I come from New York, and they have the regents, and to graduate from high school, you have to take certain core classes for that too.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I wanted to add in, because of what Eileen was talking about with us old people, and is that people nowadays don't realize the amount of information students have to learn now compared to when I went to high school.
That's right.
With all the different things that are going on with technology and other things. So the students have to do a lot more work. I agree with that.
Yeah.
And what they're learning to get through everything.
Agreed. Yeah.
John wants to make some announcements, I think. We've run past his time. Are we good, John?
I got too much going on my screen today.
Okay. So you're looking on that chart. The history. I mean, I continue to be disappointed that MCAS doesn't have the history test, which is why I think that out there in amongst the population, people don't know the difference between fascists and Nazis and communists like Stalin, Mao, and Pol Pot, who killed millions of people. Are we going to ever get that history test from MCAS? Is anybody putting any pressure on DESE about that?
Well, I think this guy, Cliff Krieger, can put pressure on Desi to get it, right? He's lobbying for it. It's interesting, before I answer your question, Cliff, it's interesting that, you want to slam MCAS, and we want to hold up MCAS as being the problem, but then when you have an issue, like you're worried about students not learning their history, we look for an MCAS test to help us be sure that that's what's happening, right? So it is a shame. It's a crying shame that we don't have an MCAS social studies or history exam. I don't know what's taking us so long, other than it's possibly controversial, right? Because some people, we want to make sure students understand the difference between the fascists and the Nazis and the communists. And someone else says, well, no, it's more important that they understand, something different. I don't know why they can't come together on a common test, but they haven't done so yet.
So I'm hoping John can throw up a chart here. Not this one,
Well, let me go like this.
not that one, not that, the next one, there we go. So this is a comparison that we have the schools, the lowest school, then Lowell, Dracut, Tingsboro, Chelmsford. What is that one?
Ben Becker Center.
You got Tewksbury in there.
Yeah, and then the best school.
Ben Benninger.
So I've graded them by how they did on MCAS averages, and this is median income. So there seems to be some correlation between median income and how people are doing on MCAS. Now, I don't know, we can't fix median income, but I wonder if that's a surrogate for parental involvement, parental discipline, attitudes within a community, school size. I hired a statistician one time to look at school size versus MCAS score, and medium-sized schools did better than small schools or big schools. So if we, and I'm really leading up to talking about Zoe and her.
You gotta give me a chance to get in. Cliff, you've said enough in the last couple of minutes with this stupid chart on the screen here. You've said enough to fill an hour of a show. If you give me a chance to respond, okay?
Only 15 minutes.
On that alone.
Yeah, all right.
First of all, due to your brilliance, and I'm serious about this, you're absolutely right about MCAS scores being correlated to income. Absolutely. You could take the MCAS scores of all the towns in Massachusetts and lay them out from the lowest to the highest. And then you could take on a separate piece of paper all the towns and cities across Massachusetts from the poorest to the most affluent. And those two would match pretty well. You'd find an exception here and there, but it matches up pretty well. The next thing, however, is why? And so Cliff Krieger is making a suggestion that is due to certain attitudes or parent involvement and so on. I believe it's because students in affluent communities, they have books from the age of 2 or 3. They have family trips to various interesting places. They have health care when they need it. In the poorest of our communities, people scramble to make a living. People, may not be able to afford the same kind of nutritious food. They can't go to the doctor as frequently when their kids are sick. They certainly don't go on field trips or family trips to interesting places. These are the reasons why poverty relates to student outcomes in school, not because of attitudes or because people don't care.
Okay. Let me ask you about immigration. It's just conceptually in my mind, immigrant children are going to be an additional burden because you've got to do English as a second language, and then you have to help them learn other subjects where English is not their first language. Are we finding there is some impact? And then what about the Nisi and the Sensi the second and third generation children, how quickly do they become just regular students?
I would say, look at prime example number one in front of you and in your own community that you see every single day. Look at Cambodian immigrants that came to Lowell in the 80s and early 90s. How are they doing? They're thriving, right? We've had a mayor from the city of Lowell who was from the Cambodian community. We have politicians and business people, and they are not only thriving in and of themselves, they're making our community so much richer and so much better, right? So that's going to be the same. You know, there was a time, Cliff, let me remind you, if you want to go way back in history, there was a time where the Irish came to Lowell, and they were known as the dirty Irish. And they were ignorant people who had poor education and so on. But over time, of course, they integrated and they assimilated, and they did some things to benefit society and to make things better. That's the truth about other immigrants that are coming today. Yes, they need some additional supports. Yes, they have to learn the language, but they end up enriching our communities and making our society stronger.
But I guess my question is, are there additional expenses that we're looking at, and are these expenses that we should be looking at the state or the federal government to help us with?
Well, every child, you could say, there's a cost for education that we can break it down per student. And the state has actually done that. So when we take in migrant students, we are paid by the state $104 per day for every immigrant student. So which equates to roughly somewhere like $17,000 or $18,000 per year, and that's the amount that it costs to educate a child in Massachusetts.
Isn't that what we get for a regular kid?
That's correct. So in other words, they're giving you the amount of, they're giving you a similar amount of funds for every migrant child that you would get for
I just want to
every
tell
other
this to
child.
the audience that no more, we're not going to take any more questions from the audience. I got 3 I'm going to rapidly fire here, Cliff, so you
Go
can
ahead.
Do these. Eileen, you want to read these?
I am watching the morning show. What they are missing is a lot of children are at a disadvantage because their parents have not been educated, do not speak English, and cannot give them assistance. Yes, that is a problem within itself.
Moving right along.
Swing and a miss, doctor. We had to be outside and had to have jobs, do yard work, clean rooms, and responsibilities. Kids are never told no. Yeah, very true. We're afraid to say no.
Lastly,
We added diversity, equity, and inclusion along with reading, writing, and arithmetic. Is that a lot of little minds to keep up with? Is that a lot for little minds to keep up with? Yes, it is. Thanks, Dr. Skinner, for coming in today and taking questions. Got to love his fighting Irish spirit. Yeah, no, I definitely think so. People are afraid to say no. You're in a class teaching and they're like, Miss, I'm sad. And I say, we're not in counseling today. This is not your counseling class. You know, we're here to learn. And children, students don't know because we've created a society of, let's talk about your feelings. Let's talk, and you know what? Yes, there is a place to talk about feelings, but then there's a place to learn. And children haven't been taught that coming from the home environment. So thank you. I just wanted to go off.
When you went to school, John, did you have to use good manners?
I went to a Catholic school, Sisters of Charity, Halifax, St. Peter's School, right down the street.
Did you have to use good manners, John?
I had a blast. Teachers were strict.
There you go.
You could hear a pin drop.
There you go.
And I got to pat the guy in the back across the street here. I think his name is Greg at the Rogers School.
That's correct.
I went over there one time to read. Walking down the hallway, the calamity happening from each side of the corridor as I'm walking down to the class I'm going to read to was crazy. Now, it's cool, calm, and collected.
There you go. You know what?
Big difference.
John, you're making my case for me here. Leadership matters, right? And that fellow across the street is Dr. Greg Balser, and yes, he's a terrific leader, and he's put his school in order, and he's demanding a respectful environment in his school, right? And
He's
so,
successfully executing instead of the guy before him who just closed his door.
what do you expect to see if you walked into a math class in that school? You'd see math lessons occurring. What do you expect to see if you went into a science class, and so forth, right? That is the same for the person who wrote the comment about diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's not taking up any time in our schools. It's not taking up any time from education. None. No more than,
Yes, but-
John, no more than Dr. Balser across the way here, he has an orderly, respectful environment in his school. Is that taking up time from the math and the science? No, it's actually encouraging the lessons in the classrooms.
Liam, respectfully, I think what's happening here is the Boston media, they have a postcard of school administration. The postcard's got to look good on TV. And you have to have all the skin colors in the world in administration. And I think that's a big mistake, to worry about the postcard, that we have all the colors of the world in administration.
Why is that a problem, John? You know, when you and I
Because
went...
I want the best pilot piloting my plane. I want the best administrator administrating to my teachers.
So you don't think that people of color can be the best administrators,
I'm not
the best
saying
pilots?
that. I'm not saying that.
But so then, John, if they can be, and if they are, and we live in a community that has lots of different races and different students of different backgrounds, why should they not have teachers and leaders that look like them?
I'll throw it right back in your face. I'll throw it back at you now. How many administrators do you have that are under par?
Say that
How
again.
many administrators do you have right now that are working under par?
None.
Very good.
I don't tolerate that, John. I don't tolerate
So
that.
you fire people.
I do.
Good for you. Thank you.
Yeah, we don't. You have to have standards, and if people can't meet the standards, you have to move on. Okay, and so yes, I do. But you have to hire. I said this is the very first question of the show today. That you have to hire really, really good people who are going to get the job done, and I have no tolerance for anything else. But you and I went to school probably with teachers that looked like us. They had white skin. And kids today, especially in a place like Lowell, who are Cambodian Americans, Hispanic Americans, right? They need to see people that look like them in order to believe that they can become highly educated and highly successful students. We have to be conscious of that as we hire the very best people for every opening that we have.
I tell the story many, many times on this show. My mother, we're at the Pioneer Market, okay? Which was down here a long, long time ago. There's a black woman shopping. So I says to my mother, "Ma, what's that?" She said, "I'll tell you when we get home." Okay? So we get home, she says, "Honey, look, there are all kinds of different people in the world. You take two different batteries. You take a Duracell and you take a Radio Shack battery and you put them in a flashlight. What happens?" I said, "Well, the flashlight works." The energy that's inside those people is identical. They have a different label. They're just the same as you. I remember that story.
So, do we believe this when people say that children learn better when their teacher is the same demographic as them?
It's not as simple as that, Cliff. But if you go into if you're in a school where every teacher and every leader is a white person, you know, and you're a young child, there's a message there, and the message is that successful people who are going to be teachers and who are going to be leaders they look this way. If you have all of a sudden, you know, a Muslim teacher or, you know, a Hispanic teacher as well as white teachers, you get the feeling, or you get the message there is that, you know, people from all different backgrounds can be teachers.
Yeah, that's good. Eileen, do you have a wrap-up question here?
No, I just wanted to update the audience that Karen Reed, that I was just reading information, the judge, Bev Canoni, I guess, is rumored to being forced out of being the head justice department, the head justice at the Norfolk Superior
So
Court.
she's off the bench for the trial?
That's what it looks like. Nothing official has happened yet, but that's what it looks like, and that's what I was reading about when you
Okay.
guys were talking.
So my big hope is, I've got a lot of ideas.
90 seconds.
My big hope is that Zoe Dzerzhinsky will, A, help parents do better, and B, sometime come on the show and explain to us what she's doing. But do you see that as a pretty important function, what Zoe's doing, the parent school?
Absolutely. We have to, a lot of that has to do with helping parents understand how to interact with schools, how to keep track of their students' learning, how to intervene and advocate for their child. Some parents don't understand how to do that and don't find the schools to be very accessible. So yes, it's important that we make sure they get that message.
Next time, I hope we can talk about personal finance.
Personal finances?
Personal finance, yes, lad.
Right.
Next time.
I'll get ready for that when I start preparing.
Yes, bring your banking statements.
John, can I say, we're about to get off the air, I'm sure. I want to say pleasure meeting you and seeing you today, so thanks for your contributions.
So,
I meant Mike, excuse me,
Yes.
Mike is on the
We know what you
screen.
meant,
Yeah,
yep.
okay.
Thank you.
As a fellow Irish person, I agree with you.
All right. Well, I might need you to be on the show when I'm back, Mike, because I need some backup against people like Cliff over here, and even John McDonough on occasion. Yeah, good to meet you.
I mean, I just had this discussion recently with my son about finances and about school. He lives in New Zealand, so we were having a discussion about schooling, and it was interesting, similar to some of the stuff that was going on today. So.
great. Well, Dr. Skinner, thank you very much for coming on the show. Thank you for coming to this
Pleasure.
country, and
Thank you.
I assume you came legally, right?
Well, that'd be the fodder for another show.
Hey, we'll see you
That would be
tomorrow.
fodder for another show.